Hi, welcome to the DanCan Show, where I love what I do and I do what I love, and so should you. This is the show where we learn three things: how to provide, protect, and promote. If you are a husband, a father, a business owner, a leader, this is a show for you. We also dive into what it looks like to live your life and run a business biblically. If this interests you, man, keep on listening. I'm going to start with provide, protect, and promote. What we're going to hit today is the second thing, which is protect. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart, protecting. I want to start with a story, and you may have heard it, but I read it in a book most recently, and I think it really paints a great picture of what we're going to try to do today. So here's the story. There was a pastor that lived in a small town, and one of the schools in his town, some indecent businesses started to spring up around the school, and he was really concerned. So he galvanized the community. They went to court to sue these businesses because it was unrighteous, these businesses. So he's in court, and then the pastor, he's not a lawyer, he's in court. And the defending attorney was really trying to mock the preacher slash pastor. And the story goes, the lawyer is, "Sir, isn't a pastor a shepherd?" A shepherd. And he says, "Yes." And he said, "Well, do you have a flock?" And the pastor says, "Yes." And the lawyer says, "What are you doing today? You're in court. You're not with your sheep." And the pastor looks at him and says, "Today I'm hunting wolves." And I thought, man, what a fantastic story. Sometimes, as leaders, yeah, it's hard. We need to protect, we need to hunt wolves, if you will. And at the end of this show, I really believe, if you have a pen and paper, I really believe you're going to be able to protect your team by this. We're going to focus today on what it takes to create culture in your business, in your family, so that people that follow you feel protected. I know oftentimes if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, and some things in regards to entrepreneurship is we like new things. We like to try new things. But I have learned as a leader that really what my team needs from me for my businesses is they need me to be consistently consistent. Consistently consistent. And you may want to write that down. I remember when Lisa and I, when we were pregnant with our first child, I had asked my mom, "Hey, can you give me some advice about parenting?" And she said, "Yeah, be consistent, be consistent." And that's always stuck with me. I can't say I've always been consistent, but I've always wanted to be. Today is about office culture. And as on our first section, we always start with the genesis, the beginning. And I want to start with my beginning in regards to this. And this is a funny story, but it's my story. And it's this. So, as I mentioned in prior episodes, I'm the son of two immigrants. So, my mom is from Britain. She immigrated in 1958. My biological father is from Santiago, Chile, and he immigrated in 1973. So take a second there. I grew up in a household with a British mom and a Chilean dad. I lived with my mom. Like I had mentioned earlier, my parents got separated when I was quite young. I lived the majority of my life with my mom, but there was a season for a couple of years where I did live life with my Chilean side of the family. And I would often visit there in the summer and on Christmas breaks and whatnot. So just think about this from a cultural standpoint. I live with my mom, who's British, and she's very much British. She's an American citizen now, but she definitely is British. Man, that was an interesting household. It looked like this: going to bed at 9 o'clock and getting up at 4:30. That's what my mom does, and I'm an early riser like her. Now, on the Chilean side of the family, they don't go to bed at 9 p.m. They go to bed at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. Not all the time, but often. And that's way different way of life. You don't hear much about British food other than fish and chips. Latino fare is very spicy, very good. Just food and growing up, getting up, going to bed, social norms. A real funny thing that happened to me growing up was, I don't know if you know this or not, but British people, most of them, when they have tea, they obviously put sugar in there too. So when I went to go live with my Chilean side of the family, one of my uncles asked me if I wanted tea. And I said, sure. And so he poured me some tea. And I asked for the milk. And he could not stop laughing. He berated me that, "What are you doing putting milk in your tea?" And I'm looking at him like, What are you doing not putting milk in your tea?" So culture, obviously this is about heritage and different things like that. We're talking about culture in the sense of a business and a family. Another genesis of mine in regards to culture is this. When I went to college, I actually was for a good year and a half, 2 years, I was actually studying to be a cultural anthropologist. So I was going to study cultures for a living. That was an amazing experience that I got to have there at a state school that I went to called Central Washington University. Had opportunity to teach intro to anthropology, cultural anthropology, which was fascinating. I still can't believe they allowed me to teach those students, but they did. This word culture gets kicked around a lot. And I don't want it to just be this word that we use. I actually want to give you fundamental steps, things that you can write down, that you can really look at your life, your family, your business to see if you're participating in a way that really benefits your team members or your family members with consistency. Before we dive into that, I just want to have a quick break for a word from our sponsors, which I'm very thankful that they're sponsoring this show. I'm thankful that you're listening. Let's do that now. Hi, welcome back. So, if you have a pen and a paper, you definitely want to write this down or a journal. We're going to go over 9 things that I believe are imperative to be a fantastic leader and to protect your team. And I shared that story about the preacher and about wolves. Now, not each one of these things are a wolves, okay? But they are things that can definitely stop peace. And as leaders, we want to provide peace. We want to provide structure. So the first thing you want to do in regards to establishing culture is you want to define your core values. Core values really are the foundation block to how you can have a successful family or business. And I know I keep mentioning those two things together because although I am a businessman, I'm really a family man first. And those two things for me often coincide. I don't separate one or the others. So first and foremost, you want to have your core values. You want to have them listed. You want to have them on posters because that will allow for people to succeed. So for example, in my office, we have 4 things. We call it the Dan Can way. All right. And my name's Dan Can. And so the first one is this: always protect the customer, the company, and the team. That's number one. Always protect the customer, the company, and the team. The second one is always show up early. 3 is don't be critical. 4 is have fun. So, in order to work for me, you got to be able to do those 4 things. Showing up on time. Why is that important? It's extremely important because it shows value. You value your team, you value the team, my expectations, and you value what we're doing. If someone's chronically late, they're probably not engaged. And that's something that as a business owner, you just can't have. I'll tell a story in the third section here in regards to some funny things about that. The second thing you want to do outside the core values is you want to lead by example. If in your company you want to have a kind, compassionate company, you should probably be a kind and compassionate person. If you want to have a sales office, you should probably be a salesperson. You should probably be talking about sales. I love sales. Oftentimes in my businesses, we have a little fun saying sell because that's what we do. Now, when you lead by example, it's often things you don't do. What are some things that you are doing right now that you know as a leader? Hey, that's just not efficient. That's not what I'm trying to do. Take a moment, write those things down, and keep yourself accountable to those things. This is something that I often do. I can be very joyful, I can be very happy, but I can also be very cynical. It's something that I'm working through. And when things get tight, I can get cynical. That doesn't help anybody. Sarcasm, that doesn't help anyone. I need to be positive and I need to be speaking about the future and I need to promote vision. Once again, this is in regards to how do we protect our team. The third thing is you want to hire for a cultural fit. So, oftentimes when you're interviewing, there is a technician work that needs to be done. However, that can be taught. What can be taught is like fundamentals in regards to how do you treat people? How do you treat yourself? Are you a positive person? Are you a hard worker? You want to make sure that you have people that can fit your culture. I know business owners who fundamentally they don't care about that. They just care about results. For me and my business, no thanks. I want people that want to spend time with me. I read this once in a book and it's called the airport method and it's this: You're interviewing this person, and if you were flying together to a business meeting and the flight was delayed for a few hours, would you want to spend time with this person in the airport? And that's always helped me to hire people that I think would be a good fit for me and my business. The fourth thing is to onboard with intention. What does that mean? You want to make sure that when you hire someone that you have a plan, that it's written out, that it's clear, that people have an expectation of what they need to know and learn. This is definitely an area that I can grow in with our companies. We do have a format, but this is paramount because that person is new. They just want to succeed. They want to know where the fences are. They want to know what they can and cannot do. If we don't communicate that, man, that's really puts them in a tough spot, and it shows ill on the business and the team, and nobody wants that. The fifth one is this: encourage open communication. You want to make sure that your team members have an outlet to discuss things. I worked primarily through my team leads. And so they have an opportunity to talk to them and talk to them often. My team leads are fantastic. They are great at communicating. They're fantastic listeners, and they're really great at implementing some changes that some of our other team members have brought to the table, which I'm very thankful for. The sixth one is awards and recognition. Man, people really love to feel validated. They love to know that you appreciate them. Such things as anniversaries, sales. We do a lot with Google reviews. When we get Google reviews, we take that and we send it to the whole team, because oftentimes in those Google reviews, they're talking about individuals. And I don't know if they forward those to their family and friends, but I sure hope so, because we've gotten some fantastic Google reviews. Seventh is this: you want to address, and this is a big one, you want to address toxic behavior. Toxic behavior is a killer when it comes to sales goals. Number eight is how to adapt thoughtfully. And how do you do that? How do you move forward when things aren't going well? You want to be able to adapt, whether it's a sales goal or marketing or a hiring procedure, finding a new building, looking at data lines. Like, things change. You got to be able to adapt thoughtfully. And the ninth one is this: invest in team building. I spend a lot of money on sugar and carbs in our businesses. And what I mean by that, sugar and carbs looks like, hey, celebrating team lunches, desserts, coffee in the afternoon, things like that. The other thing that we do is, we once a year we will do some kind of team activity. We call it Founders Day, and we go to throw axes. We've done that before. We've gone to baseball games. It's just a fun way to spend time together, so they know they're valued more than just a technician work, in which we all do. These nine things are key to promoting office culture. That culture is what brings success. Had mentioned we want to be consistently consistent in all nine of these things. After a short break here, I want to give real life stories and examples on how I was able to implement some of these things into our office. You may want to do it as well. So let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Hey, welcome back. So, I own a dynamic insurance agency. I say dynamic because, man, we help a lot of people. Very thankful for the 8 people that work for my insurance company. I'm also very thankful for the thousands of insurance customers that we have. Insurance is a fantastic business. I really enjoy being involved with it. Like I said, I've been in the insurance industry for 18 years. And I've had the opportunity to be around some fantastic people, definitely people that have made me better as a person and as a leader. I want to share a couple stories in regards to some of these team members, because they just really are an example of what it looks like when it's working. And this is back when the insurance agency was still, we hadn't hit our real growth phase yet, but we were getting there. And I put a job offer out there, and this was in regards to a licensed agent selling property and casualty insurance, which is basically home and auto insurance. There's other things in there, but that's the basic two. And in the job ad, I had said you have to be a licensed insurance agent, and you got to understand insurance. I got a applicant, a resume, and she hadn't had any insurance experience. She was actually working at a really large national bank, but I don't know, just something inside me was like, I need to meet this person. She had a pretty good resume outside of the very thing we needed to hire for, but she showed up and very nice. And we're going through the job interview. And at the time, we were just a starting agency, so I wasn't able to provide benefits. And so she's working for this large corporation, which I know has health and dental and retirement, and I'm going through her resume and she's interviewing really well and I'm really enjoying this. But as a leader for the life of me, I'm like, why does she want to come work for me? She's leaving security of a large bank, she's leaving all these benefits. And so finally I had to just sit back and I said, hey, listen, I hope you're enjoying this interview as much as I am. But I gotta ask you, why do you want to come and work here? Like you have higher pay, you have benefits, you have this. And I'll never forget this. She looked at me and she said, Dan, I work for this large bank and I feel like a cog in a wheel. I feel like a number. What I liked about your job posting and what I'm seeing here is I feel like I could be part of a family. I feel like I can grow and have influence in here. I have no influence where I'm currently working. My word, could you imagine as an owner, you're sitting there and you're like, Yeah, what do we got to talk about?" And then she said something that was even better. She said, Dan, what is your sales record? What are the most policies an agent has sold for you in a month? And I told her, and she said, I will break that record and then I will break my record and then I'll break it again. And I can tell you, she did. She was an amazing team member. She went and got licensed. She went through the whole process. She did the schooling. She came in and she worked for us for many years. And you know where this is going. She became the office manager. She became the leader. A fantastic team member that I still have a relationship with this day to this day. She's moved on to bigger and better things, but her time with us was just fabulous. Another story that I love to share. And so, what do you take from that? You can write this down. Develop a place where people want to work. Obviously, pay and benefits are very important, but how people are treated and if they could be promoted oftentimes will outweigh that. Now, with that being said, you obviously want to have fair market value when it comes to pay and compensation. The next one is this. Oftentimes, I hear business owners complain about people being late, their team members being late. And I had a season where we had a couple team members where that was indeed the case. They were being late often. And on the British side of things, like we show up 15 minutes early to everything. And so that really bothers me. You know, you do the reminders and you talk and all this other stuff. But I was trying to think of what is a way that I could create a system where I don't have to be talking about it all the time. Cause then you're just like a teacher with a ruler, right? And I didn't want to do that. And so sat back and I thought of some very creative, constructive ways on how to bring about basically proper attendance. This is what I came up with. I decided that because of this, I was going to do a thing called pre-day meetings. I would really encourage you, if you have an office where you meet together, to do this. And these pre-day meetings are fabulous, okay? We meet 10 minutes before 9. On these meetings or in these meetings, I talk about three things. And we do this every day: who we are, where we're going, and who do we serve. So every day, one of those three things are going to be addressed. Now, I also typically start it with a pointless fact or a fun joke or a fun story. And it's just something to where I'm trying to get them laughing and talking. I oftentimes will answer or ask questions, they answer them. So think about this. If you're supposed to be work at 9 o'clock and you're showing up at 9:10, I drop an email, we talk. What's that? That has nothing. However, if seven people are standing right there in the foyer and you show up and you're late, the whole group is now looking at you. Guess what? No one shows up late anymore. And it actually helped me because I got to be able to communicate all the things that I just talked about, recognizing people for amazing Google reviews or sales or a hard customer service that it was difficult and there's all these little entanglements and they worked it out. You get to adapt because oftentimes there's something you need to discuss. In addition to that, I'm investing in team building. They're hearing from the owner or a team lead every single day. I get to lead by example. I'm communicating what we want to do. I want them to communicate to our customers what we want to supply for them as a service, right? I'm defining our core values, which means that I am being open and I'm talking with them with communication. I'm being intentional with them. And what's has been amazing as I've seen them at this point really start to work with each other more because they hear me talking to them, they talk to each other, they get to support one another. If you don't currently have pre-day meetings, and if you do have an office or some kind of construction company, I would really encourage you to take a look at this. It's not hard. It's 5 to 10 minutes, but it means so much to the team because they don't want to feel like a number. And so, like that story that I had just shared about, she's working for a large bank and then she come and works for a small office because at the time I only had two people. So she was going to be number three. That's a small family, right? And so these are some points and some stories. I just want to drive home what it looks like to protect your team, what it looks like to protect your family. You can take all of these principles and you can do this for a family. So, for example, in our family, we're intentional. We're intentional with the Lord, we're intentional with one another, we're intentional with our community. We really value worship. We really value worship. All three of our boys are musicians. They all three play on a worship team or have. I'm a worshiper. I love worshiping the Lord. And so these are core values or things or culture that I really wanted to see implemented in our family. And of course, Lisa did too. After this small break, we're going to come back and bring it all together. Welcome back. Okay, so if you've listened to my podcast, you know exactly where I'm going to next. The law of 72. What is the law of 72? The law of 72 is this: you want to take one to two things that you heard in this podcast, you want to write those things down and you have 72 hours starting now to implement this. Where would I start? Okay, I'm going to be 50 here in a couple months. Where would I start if I was talking to a 26-year-old Dan Can? This is where I would start. I would start with, what are your values? What are your core values? Core value that I hold as a business owner and as a family man and as the leader of our family and a leader of our business is I value margin. And I might have a whole episode on what margin is and what it means to me. Margin basically means that I have bandwidth to be present, whether that's with the person or the project that I'm on or my finances. I believe in having large margins so I can be there for somebody. So that would be a law of 72 for me. And how do you create margin? You look at your schedule, you ink what you think, you write down where you want to go, what you're going to do. Listen, you got to drive your schedule or your schedule is going to drive you. And I had decades of that. No thanks. And so what is your law of 72? Do you want to start having team meetings, team lead meetings? Do you want to start having more sugar and carbs flowing through your office? Do you want to go to take the team to a ball game or a hockey game? All of these things you can do. Or are you a dad and you want to invest in your son or your daughter, your family, your children? Are you going to take the time to have weekly discipleship times with them to discuss what you know is important for them to succeed? I can tell you that if you take that step as a father, you set up weekly times with your kids, they will value those times more than. And what's so fantastic is when you do that, they share things with you and you're able to actually really help them and love them. What I've noticed is having those isolated times. I have a home office here. This is it behind me. We shut that door and they know that I'm 100% engaged with them. They know that this is their time. We have a house with a huge, great room. It's very difficult to have personal conversations in there, but in my office with the door closed, they can share a lot of things. We can talk a lot of things. We can talk about a lot of things. I can give them a lot of joy in regards to their future and hope that they can do it, that they can succeed. So, in conclusion, if this was an essay, what is your law of 72 to do? I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. This is about protecting, creating office culture. Now, listen, Dan Can, listeners, love well and do good. Thank you so much for listening.